Has the audio gotten any better? Gotten any better? Gotten any better? Sounds like it has. All right. We're gonna start this all over again. Hey, welcome to Retro Reprise again. So, man, I've been having just the worst luck with my computer lately, but hopefully I've got everything taken care of now and everything will be massively cool. Bear with me for just a moment while I check on my stream. I think that was just all OBS at this point in time. So, welcome back if you were watching before. If you weren't, I'm starting this all over again, starting fresh because my audio decided to really crap out on me. And I'm so paranoid about it, I'm checking my audio again, so stick around. So paranoid about it, I'm checking my audio again, so... Okay, great. All right. So we're going to start over again. I saw that there were some people watching. Please join in on the chat. I would really love to have make you guys part of the show, have a conversation, hang out. That's all this is just hanging out and talking about some things. But we're going to go back to the first story that I was talking about. We're going to start from scratch, act like this never happened. And we're going to start the story talking about good old Billy Mitchell. So this first article that we're taking a look at came from Engadget. I will try to remember to put the links below in the description when this goes out, so if you guys want to check it out for yourself, you can. I did see an article earlier from Kotaku that I thought was a little bit disgusting. It was just the author apparently has known Billy Mitchell for a while, and he was more or less praising Billy Mitchell for being a good heel, and that he's always going to be remembered as a video game guy because he got kicked out of Twin Galaxies, which I thought was a bit disgusting, but whatever. So let's get into this. Billy King of Kong Mitchell's Donkey Kong scores were a lie. And here we go. We'll get into it. It's over. Billy Mitchell, the King of Kong, has had his long-contested Donkey Kong high score stripped from the Twin Galaxies leaderboards, and the organization has notified Guinness World Records of its decision. More than that, all of his records have been removed from the forums, and he is banned from Twin Galaxies' competitive leaderboard wholesale. Twin Galaxies ran an independent investigation in addition to having at least two third parties perform their own, with other experts weighing in on the dispute as well. So if you haven't kept up with it, you didn't know what was going on. Billy Mitchell essentially turned in MAME footage of Donkey Kong, of some of his Donkey Kong high scores. And you can't, when you're playing competitively like this for high scores, you can't use MAME for a couple of good reasons. One is that you can replay things, and you can also use save states and start over again. Now, if you haven't seen King of Kong, I think it was Steve Wiebe is the dude's name that he was playing against, and Wiebe he had a title for about a second of having the first, I think, 1,000,000 point score on Donkey Kong. And as soon as he did that, then this videotape came in from Billy Mitchell showing that he actually had accomplished that a little while earlier and was able to, video it and stuff. But there's people who have gone in and really scrutinized the video. For a while, you couldn't get audio from MAME very well, so there was a videotape with no audio on it. There was one with some audio on it, and there was a bunch of cuts and chops in the audio, so even if it looked like it was legit, you could hear that it really wasn't. But this just kind of proves that Mitchell, you know, some people look at him as just like, oh well, he plays a good heel for these, you know, retro games or these old video games. He was a good bad guy to have in the movie. But the thing is, you know, he actually cheated. He actually used MAME. He claims that he never has used MAME. But you know, they were able. It took a long time for people to kind of prove that he did. The thing is, this is just now becoming news, at least with the Twin Galaxy side of it. But there's a Donkey Kong specific group that does Donkey Kong. So different versions of Donkey Kong. Like there's an Atari version, and there's a Nintendo version, and then there's the arcade, and there's different people holding high scores in different versions of Donkey Kong. And they pulled Billy Mitchell, man, like 2 months ago. So it took Twin Galaxies a long time to do it. Now, on top of that, this is bad for Billy Mitchell, obviously, but I think this also kind of looks bad on Twin Galaxies. Twin Galaxies has always been sort of a good old boys club. And there's been, you know, some of the high scores that were entered in were from referees. And the referees are buds with the person playing the game. The referees also have their own high scores in other games. I think there was even another referee that was they found out that he was a pedophile. These aren't good people by any means. That's not what we're. That's the thing that we're trying to say here, is that these aren't the greatest people in the world. So Twin Galaxies has really had their reputation tarnished several times over. And I would like to see Twin Galaxies actually do something about that. Like say, hey, here's our standardized way of recording scores for video games. For us to do this, what we're going to do is, you know, we'll have you know, with cameras these days, you can actually have better recording things available to you. So you could take like a GoPro and mount it to the inside of the cabinet pointing at the screen, and take another GoPro and point it at the person and start recording 10 minutes before they start the game, and then have them start up and play the game. And and now you have physical evidence, you know, the camera on the screen and a camera on the person playing the game to record what's there. It would just be nice to know if they have like a standardized version of keeping track of these records, and something that you could do digitally and keep and have access to easily. So that's it for Billy Mitchell. Billy Mitchell to me seems like the guy, you know, he maintains a mullet. He has this arrogance about him. If he's got his own line of like video game themed hot sauces. I think he runs like a wing, like a Wingstop kind of restaurant. And he always seems like the kind of dude who life hasn't kicked him in the nuts enough. Hopefully, at some point in time, life just, you know, kicks you in the nuts. Cooter if you're a woman. Where you get to a point where you're humble, and you're not an arrogant SOB. And Billy Mitchell's never been that. He's never been. He's always been a braggart. He's always been kind of arrogant, and now we can see that he's you know, he's a cheater as well. And it's taken a long time for Twin Galaxies to catch up with it, but it's finally hit. But yeah, we're gonna move on to SNK. This one is coming from Destructoid. So SNK is going to release a 40th anniversary collection announced for the Switch. Let's run through these games because I think they're pretty cool. But these are games from the 80s arcades catalog. So they're going to have Alpha Mission arcade and home versions, Athena arcade and home versions, Crystalis, Akari Warriors, home and arcade, Akari Warriors 3, The Rescue, home and arcade. I saw on another list that Akari Warriors 2 was on here as well. And I'm hoping that I'll have that. Guerrilla Warfare, POW, Prehistoric Isle, 1930, Psycho Soldier, Street Smart. I like Street Smart. TNK 3, arcade and home versions, Vanguard, and Victory Road, arcade and home versions. This is actually a really cool collection of games. The thing is, this is sort of pre-Neo Geo time frame. So I don't know how well this will do. People like me will dig it, but I don't know if this is going to be something that everybody's going to be into. Now, according to this, there's an ongoing Neo Geo support from Hamster, so I guess there's... is there a downloadable store for the Switch? I don't know. I don't have a Switch, so I'm not sure. But this looks like a cool little collection. They also have a $65 physical limited edition with a soundtrack, hardcover art book, and collector's box. I don't know about that. You know, this needs to be like a $20 or $30 budget title. If it's that, then pick it up, because that'd be cool. I'm interested to see how they're going to make arrangements for the Ikari Warrior games. Just because in the arcades, the joystick, besides moving like a normal joystick, it was a rotary joystick. So you actually, to get your character to point their gun in a certain direction, you'd have to spin the arcade stick, and it sort of clicked into place. So you'd click it over a couple notches, and then you could move and shoot. And most of the time, they just kind of tie that into the D-pad with the direction you're pointed in. But it would be kind of cool to figure out a way to get that to work. It would almost be better to have that set up like a twin stick shooter, where you could use your buttons to shoot in a different direction. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what they do with that. But that's it for SNK. Yeah, cool little collection for those of us who are old. And I don't know if this is going to be something that the younger audiences are going to be into, but hopefully they are. And we're going to move on to the next story. Take a little vape. There was an announcement. This is coming from Polygon. An announcement that the Sega Genesis Mini, aka Mega Drive Mini, was announced. To commemorate the console's upcoming 30th anniversary, Sega took the opportunity to unveil its own miniature classic edition version of the legendary 16-bit Genesis. The so-called Mega Drive Mini will be released in Japan first, with the US and other territories later this year, according to @Games, whose technology will power the console. Oh... You may recognize @Games, whose Sega Genesis Flashback console tried and failed to match Nintendo's efforts last year. Okay. This last week, Sega's COO said that the company was interested in getting back into the hardware business following the explosive success of Nintendo's classic reissues. Sega famously exited the hardware business after the failure of the Sega Dreamcast in 2001, which was a shame because the Dreamcast is one of my favorite consoles. It really has a great library of games. As promising as that sounds, the source of the interview link suggested that Sega would opt to distribute the @Games Mega Drive Flashback, which, per review above, is not great. Yeah, @Games doesn't do a fantastic job. In fact, I've got an @Games. Hold on. I don't know if this is charged or not, but this is an @Games Sega Genesis game player. It's a handheld console that plays Genesis games. It needs to be charged. I can't turn it on. Its battery's dead. I should have charged it. Could show you guys. The biggest hang up with the @Games consoles is... I mean, the form factor is actually really nice to play on. The D-pad's not too bad. There's a little issues with the D-pad, but it really isn't too bad. It's actually a good shape, and it's a nice form factor. But what really kills it is the audio. I don't know what they've done to their audio. I've played on an @Games Genesis console as well, and the audio is just atrocious on that. So that Sega's wanting to have that through @games is really troublesome. They're also partnered up with Retrobit, and Retrobit would have been a better company to actually produce this console. But fingers crossed, maybe this will be good. I don't know. I've seen a lot of people post on Twitter about this, and them basically saying, yeah, @games, really, Sega? That's what you guys are going with? But yeah, usually it's the audio, and the emulation is just absolutely horrible. Now, there have been some people wanting to know if this is going to take cartridges, and they're saying that the Japanese version won't, but the later versions that are going to be released to everybody else will have a cartridge slot. Let's see here. Let's see. We'll have basics like whether it's going to have Sonic 3. @games replied it wouldn't be included because there has license issues with the music. As for about different last year's flashback unit, @games said different emulation, additional features, adding that the Japanese version pictured above clearly has no cartridge slot. Other territories will have cartridge slots, so you should be able to play your Genesis cartridges on here. So, @games, we'll give them another shot, I guess. We'll just see. What's cool about this one is that there is the added. They do have the volume slider. Who knows if that's actually going to work or not? But it does. It does look like a Genesis. It looks more like a Genesis than what the @games like version that came out this last year, the flashback version. This one does look a little bit closer. So who knows? It may be... I'm hoping that it's good. I'm hoping this is going to be a turning point for a couple things. @games has been really the terrible company. When you look at the companies that are making, the retro... you're looking at Hyperkin, you're looking at Retrobit. @games is so far down the list as far as quality is concerned that I think it was a shock for people to be like, Sega, you're really going with this? And really, probably they had some bids put in. Because I know Retrobit's making official Sega Genesis controllers, or not just Genesis, but official Sega controllers, so you can go get a new Dreamcast controller. You can go get a new Saturn controller and a Genesis controller. So if @games does a decent job and actually changes the emulation and makes it good, this could start putting @games on the map, but they've done just a pathetic job as far as their emulation is concerned. So hopefully, maybe they've got a little bit more financial backing with this one, and they can actually do a good job and QA this stuff like they should. But we're going to call that it for the Sega Genesis Mini. Okay, so we're going to jump into this next bit. The next console that I think Nintendo's going to do as a mini console. So this is actually a good segue. Classic Edition mini console. Now there's a lot of people who are speculating that it's going to be the N64 because we've had the NES, we've had the SNES. It should be the N64. That was the next console, right? Well, I don't think it's going to be the N64. The reason is N64 emulation hasn't been spot on yet. I mean, if there's anybody who could do it, it would be Nintendo. But when you take a look at the cost of certain things like making the controller alone, that thing's going to be expensive. So what I think it's going to be is actually a Game Boy Classic Mini. And here's why. Now, I've covered this before, and I've actually said this on my channel before, but I don't think anybody was watching me then, so I'm going to repeat it. The reason why I think it's going to happen is because of this right here. And this is coming from Nintendo Life, but I've actually talked to Retrobit and confirmed that they were pulling these. Now, back in the CES 2017, there was an announcement for this item, and I was really, really excited about it. There was other people who were excited about it too. This is going to be the Super Retro Boy. And this was going to be a Game Boy console, clone console that played Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance games. And we were really excited about it. I was really excited about this thing. And we were expecting it, I believe, in like July, June, somewhere around that time frame of 2017. It never happened. And or no, it was slated for an August release. Excuse me, August release. And August came and went. It was gone. There was no word of it. We couldn't find anything about it. Eventually, I ended up sending Retrobit a message through Facebook, and I said, "Hey, what's going on with this thing?" And they said, "Oh, we're holding off on it. You know, we're delaying it." And then a couple of days later, they just flat out said that they're not going to do it, and there's a reason why. It's in the headline here. Retrobit puts their Super Retro Boy on hold following a Game Boy trademark renewal. Yeah, Nintendo's going back after their trademarks for the Game Boy. And we'll go into the article here. Remember the Super Retro Boy? It was one of the products Retrobit was supposed to be launching during 2017 and would have accepted Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance carts. Equipped with a TFT HD scratch and shatter resistant screen, a 25,000 mAh battery, and bundled with a 10-in-1 game cartridge, it was slated for an August release with a retail price of $79.99. August came and went, and the console failed to appear. We've reached out to Retrobit to have been told the following, that Nintendo's application for renewed Game Boy trademark. The company has put the project on hold until it can find a way of releasing the system without causing any legal problems with Nintendo. Instead of launching the console, Retrobit has decided to give more attention to other products, including the Super Retrocade and the series of multi-carts. It's also releasing physical versions of R-Type and Holy Diver. Actually, I do need to jump on that and get the physical Holy Diver. I would love to have that on my actual Nintendo console. But yeah, this is the reason why I think right here that the next retro mini console that's going to be, it's going to be a Game Boy with like 30 games on it. Actually, if Nintendo's going to do that, they really need to bulk up the game volume on that. Since it's going to be emulated games, it's going to be on a, you know, it's going to be on a chip somewhere. They could really bulk that thing out and put a lot of games on it. It would be nice to see. But that's going to do it for tonight, guys. This was really a short thing tonight, just because I wanted to cover it, and I didn't get to do it last night because I was talking about all the stuff that was going on with G-Wario and Channel Awesome. And so I'm going to quickly state something that I found out earlier today. I believe it's called the Short Fat Otaku. If I can find it again, I'll put a link below and kind of follow up on what was going on with the G-Wario stuff. As some people have discovered from Channel Awesome's response the other day, with a little bit of internet sleuthing, you could figure out who the sexual deviant was in the, I don't know why I used air quotes there, the sexual deviant who was talked about in the Google Doc that was dropped from previous producers who were complaining about Channel Awesome. And it turned out to be G-Wario. And this has been a big blow to a lot of people, myself included. I was a huge fan of his. I started collecting import games because of You Can Play This. There's a lot of people who met him and you know, he was very uplifting for a lot of people, and with these allegations, you have the allegation of grooming from one person, and you have an allegation of rape from another, and there may be more coming down the pipeline. I don't know. And last night I tried to not really dance around it, but trying to be very middle of the road. You know, there's just being kind of as neutral as I can be. And after hearing Short Fat Otaku's live stream that they had done, they had Iron Liz on, and she was able to confirm things. She's also got crisis counseling. She can verify that this person was in fact rape, and she's, you know, she mentioned in that podcast that she's 98% sure, and she was a friend of G Wario's as well. And so I'm someone who's leaning at this point in time on very much on the side of the victims. Not that I wasn't before, but I'm a trust but verify kind of person. And I've listened to a lot of shows that have had Iron Liz on, and she is not someone who puts an agenda on things. She's not someone who tries to politicize things or is over-exaggerated about a lot of stuff. So, again, my heart goes out to everybody involved, the victims, anybody who was a fan, anybody who worked with him, his family, his widow. This is one of those things that's just absolutely heartbreaking, and it makes you question everything. And you have to remember that people are multifaceted. There can be people who are really good and really bad at the same time. And it's looking like this is what it was in the case of G Wario. And there's been several requests for people not to go hunt down these anonymous people. I'm there with them. Don't try to figure out who these people were. They wanted to stay anonymous for a reason. They were still anonymous when the Not So Awesome Google Doc dropped. It was Channel Awesome themselves who poorly covered up that it was Justin. And they wanted to stay anonymous because they didn't want to have a backlash. It brings to light a couple of things. That if Channel Awesome knew about this, why weren't the police involved? Sexual assault of any kind, I understand. I can sympathize with the victims as to why they wouldn't want to report something like this, but if you're a victim of sexual assault, you almost have to look at it as a way of stopping them from doing harm to anybody else. And right now, you know, the stuff with Channel Awesome, it's been kind of like, you know, lulls just watching them kind of fail at these, you know, their replies to all of this. But at this point in time, it's really made me angry that the police were not involved with this. And they should have been. So, if you're a fan of G Wario's, I'm there with you. I was a huge fan. I remember, you know, talking with people who were like, yeah, I met him. He was a great guy. There's a lot of people who were able to, you know, they found a lot of good in Justin, but you have to remember that no one's just these one-dimensional villains or one-dimensional good guys. and people are multifaceted in that way. So you can be a good guy and a bad guy at the same time. But I hope that someday we can get closure, even though I doubt that we'll actually get that. But my heart goes out to everyone, and I hope that for those of you who've been really hurt by this, I hope that one day you can recover from this and understand that not everybody is like that. But that's going to do it for me tonight, guys. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you next week.